Hello, hello! Welcome to another episode of the Introduction to Node.js for Salesforce Developers series. Today, we are going to be learning how to integrate a Node.js application or any other application deployed to Heroku with Salesforce using Heroku Connect. This was going to be the last episode of the series, but I think we have way more content to create and to teach. So I am preparing a fifth episode. So today we are going to take a look at Heroku Connect. What is Heroku Connect? How can we integrate a Node.js or any other web application deployed to Heroku that it's using a PostgreSQL database with Salesforce? In the next episode, we are going to be taking a look now way more Node.js code. So we are going to see how to integrate a Node.js application using JSForce, which is an SDK to interact with the Salesforce API. Today, we are going to do an integration through the database. Since we are going to be integrating the database, which is running on PostgreSQL, we can use any web application deployed to Heroku. So Node.js is the topic of all of the series. So we are going to be focusing on a Node.js specific use case, but you can use whatever you learned today with any other language. So my name is Julian Duque. I am a lead developer advocate here at Salesforce, working mainly with the Heroku team. And I am very happy to be again with you. So before we start, please go in the chat. We are live. Say hello. Let me know who are you and from where in the world are you connected with us right now. I want to know you and I want to give you a warm welcome to this live channel. And remember, please, if you want to keep seeing this content, subscribe to the YouTube channel, click on the like button, and also on the little bell so you get notified when any other content we create for you is going to be available. So please go ahead. Let me know in the chat who are you and where are you from, and please say hi to all the people that is connected with us right now. So I'm seeing we have Shalini, we have Saurav, we have Adam, we have also Pablo Pasqualino connected from Argentina. Amazing. We have Najes Baran. All of you, welcome to this live channel. I have also done this series in Spanish with Alba Rivas. So we are trying to create content in parallel, both in English and in Spanish. So go ahead and take a look at the YouTube channel for more content. So let me share my screen. And before we start with today's topic, I'm going to show you the Salesforce Developers channel. So right now, here in the Salesforce Developers channel, you can see that we are live with this episode. And right now, 24 people is watching. So thank you very much for spending time with us this Thursday, even in the morning, afternoon, or night for some people right now. Time zones, all this magic. So thank you very much for joining me this moment, this Thursday, to watch this content. And I'm going to show you a little thing so you can navigate and take a look at more content. So we are creating different playlists with all of the different series, not only me, but other developer advocates and from the admin relationships team and from the architect team and the podcast. So you can go ahead, explore the playlist and take a look at more other content that we have. So here we have the Node.js for Salesforce Developer Series. If you want to see the previous episodes we already released, and we also have the series in Spanish for the Spanish-speaking people that is connected with us right now. And please feel free to go ahead and explore some other different playlists that we have available here. One that is very recommended that I also participated in it is the Modern App Development on Salesforce series. This is a true introduction from the very beginning to advanced topic to developing modern applications in the Salesforce platform using both Salesforce Core and Heroku. And also, if you want to learn a lot about Salesforce development, I will recommend to follow the Code Live with Kevin Purman, to listen to the Salesforce Developer podcast. And there is a bunch also content around Lightning Web Components, low code. So take a look at the content we have at the Salesforce Developers channel. So hello to everybody that is in the chat right now with us, and let's start with today's topic. So we have been working on a Node.js application. This application, let me open it here, is the Conference LWC app application. This is from a Trailhead module and a Trailhead project called Building a Lightning Web Components open source application. So you can follow up that module and you are going to learn how to build the interface using Lightning Web Components open source and how to deploy that application to Heroku. This application is getting data from an API. So remember that we mentioned that there is an API endpoint called API sessions. This is returning certain topics or certain talks that are going to be discussed in this conference and the speakers for that specific talk. And that's the data that we are using to render these different talks in my application. So on this series, I taught how to create this API using Node.js. And then we saw how can we get this data not from a JSON file, but from a PostgreSQL database that was also hosted on Heroku. What we are going to be doing today is integrating that PostgreSQL database with Salesforce. We want to do two things. First, making that data available to Salesforce so Salesforce can read that PostgreSQL database. And we also want to create custom objects that can be accessible through that PostgreSQL database. So our Node.js developers can access data from Salesforce without knowing Salesforce. So they don't need to know SQL, they don't need to interact with the API. They are just going to interact with the PostgreSQL database they know. This is going to enable your teams to add other people that have knowledge on different topics to interact with Salesforce data. Right now, this use case, it's pretty much integrating a third-party application, an external application written in a different language, for example, JavaScript on the Node.js runtime, deployed to Heroku. How to make that application accessible to Salesforce? How can we integrate this application to Salesforce? So we are going to be taking a look at two approaches. One approach is today's episode. We are going to be taking a look at Heroku Connect. And on the next episode, which is going to be kind of like a bonus episode, we are going to be using the SDK. We are going to be using the API to be able to do the integration. Okay? So for that, we are going to be using Heroku Connect. So what is Heroku Connect? Heroku Connect is a product from Heroku that allows you to have bidirectional synchronization between a Postgres database running on Heroku and Salesforce. And this integration, as I mentioned, it's bidirectional. So you will be able to read Salesforce objects into a PostgreSQL database, and also you will be able to write into those objects. You will be able to modify those objects from a PostgreSQL database using regular SQL operations like insert, update, delete, etc. But not only that. We already have some data in our database. Remember that we have two tables. We have a sessions table and a speakers table. So we already have data on our database, but we want to have that data available in Salesforce. So we are going to also use external objects to be able to read that data in Salesforce from PostgreSQL. So that data is going to live in Heroku, it's going to live in a PostgreSQL database, but through external objects, we will be able to read that data into my Salesforce application, and we will be able to create relationships and create a full integration. So I'm going to be focusing today mostly on the integration part. I am going to be doing some Salesforce stuff. I know there are like better ways to do it. There are going to be best practices. And you might have way more experience than me on that side of things. This is going to be just like an introduction. So I am not going to be creating layout pages. I am not going to be modifying views. I am just going to be focusing on the integration, creating custom objects, and doing the relationship between those two. Later, you can like create beautiful layout pages and creating beautiful experiences with Lightning Web Components. But today, the things are going to be a little bit by default. So I'm going to be using the default layouts and the default views, but then you will be able to customize and modify those to create a way better experience. Okay? So, how can we start? Remember that we already had an application running on Heroku. This application is the JDuke Sessions API. So I'm going to be opening the application. This is just the API. So if I go to API sessions, I am getting the same JSON result. So this is coming from the application we created using Node.js. If I am not wrong, you have access to that application. It is in my GitHub repository. So you can go to github.com/JulianDuque, my username, and the name of the app is Node Example Sessions API. I am going to be providing all of these different links in the description of the video after we finalize the session today. For some reason, I cannot paste these links into the YouTube channel because YouTube is going to be filtering those out, preventing spam, I guess. So I'm going to be adding these resources into the description so you can take a look after the video is released. So here we have the source code of the web application and the SQL database we created. So we have sessions, we have speakers, and we have a relationship between the sessions and speakers. If we go to the Heroku application, to the resources tab, we see that we have Heroku Postgres. So let's click on Heroku Postgres. This is our database. Let's go to the data clips. Remember, data clips is a way where we can create reports or create SQL queries from the Heroku interface. So here I have different data clips. So let's create a data clip. Let's call these sessions, and I'm going to be selecting everything from the sessions table. And now I have all of the 4 sessions that are on my database. So what I want to do is to be able to have a sessions object in Salesforce so I can start creating my application. So we have been asked, somebody in our team, or we want to do it, we want to create a way to let attendance to the conference RSVP to any of these sessions. So we are creating an application so our attendants can select what talk or which talk are they going to attend. So we have access to Salesforce, we have a lot of low-code tools, and we will build our application using Salesforce. But the data lives outside Salesforce. The data lives here in this Heroku application. So how can we do that? Let's take a look. So I've been mentioning you about Heroku Connect. So how can we access to Heroku Connect from our Heroku application? So we have the Heroku Elements Marketplace. The URL is going to be elements.heroku.com. This is where all our add-ons and third-party add-ons lives in Heroku. This is kind of like the app exchange for Heroku. So here you are going to search for Connect and click on Heroku Connect. So Heroku Connect is the one that is going to let us do that synchronization. You can use Heroku Connect for free. So there is a demo edition. You can use it for free. Everything we have seen in this introduction, everything we have seen in this series is free. So you don't need to pay any money to be able to use these and learn. So go ahead, make sure you have an Heroku account, make sure you have deployed the code, make sure you have a database, and you can follow this video with me or later. So we will be able to use Heroku Connect for free, but we have certain limitations. Remember when I was telling you about PostgreSQL, the limitation of the free version of PostgreSQL is that we can only create up to 10,000 rows. And that's the same limitation the free version of Heroku Connect has. You can only synchronize 10,000 rows. This means all of the different records from Salesforce that you want to map, that you want to synchronize within your application. And there is the other way of integration, which is going to be the external objects. The external objects are going to be pretty much 1,000 requests per service per hour. So this is going to be kind of like the API limitation that Salesforce Connect is going to have while fetching data from Heroku using the Heroku Connect add-on. Okay, now let's see how can we enable Heroku Connect within our application. So we have different ways to do it. You can click on the Install Heroku Connect and it will open the dashboard. You will be able to select your application. The other way is to doing it through the command line, through the Heroku CLI. Similar to how we created the Heroku Postgres add-on, you can also run this command from the CLI and it will enable the add-on for you. Or you can do it from the Heroku dashboard. So here we are on the Heroku dashboard. On the application I want to integrate with Salesforce. I'm on the Resources tab, and here I'm going to be searching for Heroku Connect. So let's search Heroku Connect, click on Connect, select the demo edition, and submit the order form. And that's it. Now we have added Heroku Connect to our application. Then what we need to do is to connect, connect Heroku Connect with Salesforce, or set up that specific connection. We need two things to do that. We need an Heroku Postgres database, which we already have, and we need a Salesforce org. So make sure you have a Salesforce org for this integration. You can use a dev hub, you can use a Scratch org, a sandbox org, depending on your use case. I'm going to be using a production dev hub that I have. It is a developer edition org, and I'm going to be using that one for this example. Let's click on Heroku Connect. And this will open the dashboard where we are going to be managing this add-on. The first thing it is asking us is to set up that connection. So we are going to be creating that connection. Click on Setup Connection, and it will ask for two things. The first thing is the database. So we are going to select the database that is going to be used for the synchronization. And it will ask us for a schema name. So a PostgreSQL database have different namespaces where you can have tables. Those namespaces are recognized as schemas. So we have the public schema. The public schema is where we have our tables. So right now we have the sessions speakers, and speakers. And this will create a new schema called Salesforce for the tables that the Heroku Connect are going to be creating automatically for us. So you don't need to create any table. Heroku Connect is going to take care of that for you. So let's select the database, click on Next, and second is going to ask us for a Salesforce organization. So we are going to select the environment. If it's a production org, a sandbox org, or a custom domain, I'm going to be doing a production org. And the API version. In this case, I'm going to be using the latest, the Spring 21. Let's click on Authorize, and it will take me to the login window where I'm going to be selecting the org that I want to log in with. So I created a TH-Live org, which is a developer edition org that I am going to be connecting and using for this demo. And that's it. If you see, now I am connected, I am using my database, and I'm using this username for my developer edition org. Cool. Now let's take a look at what we can do with Heroku Connect. Okay, let's see what we can do. We can do two things. One is create mappings. Mappings is a way where we can get any Salesforce object and map it into my PostgreSQL database. And the other way is going to be the external objects. That's going to be the opposite. That's going to be, how can we going to make available any table in my PostgreSQL database to Salesforce using an external data source? So let's start with the mappings. Cool. So far, we don't have any object map. So how can we start creating a map? Let's click on Create Mapping. This will list all of the different Salesforce objects that are supported by Heroku Connect. This is going to include a bunch of core objects and custom objects that you create on your applications. So what I want to do here is use an existing object to use as the attendees. So that one is going to be a contact to make it easy. So we don't want to create a new one and fill it up with a lot of information. Let's use the contact. So click on contact, and now we are going to be creating the mapping. And let me pause here a little bit, so I want to explain everything that's going on. We have two ways of synchronizing data here. We have from Salesforce to the database, that is going to be the read mode. So I'm bringing data from Salesforce to my database, and I will be able to set up the frequency when Heroku Connect is going to be asking for changes to Salesforce. This is going to be done through polling. So every certain time, Heroku Connect is going to be asking for changes. Since we are using the free version, the minimum poll frequency time is going to be 10 minutes. When we are on a paid version, this time is reduced. So you will be able to tweak it depending of how often your information changes. But we have a great advantage. We can use accelerated polling. What is accelerated polling? If our objects supports the streaming API, every time I do a change in the Salesforce object, is going to trigger an event that's going to notify Heroku Connect to synchronize. So I'm going to be enabling the accelerated polling for this specific object. We have a second option, which is from our database to Salesforce. And this is the write mode. Right now, I can only read data, but if I want to write data, this means update a record in Salesforce, delete a record in Salesforce, etc. I will need to enable the write database updates to Salesforce. The only thing that we need to do is to add a new field to this object in Salesforce, which is going to be an external ID. So if I click here and I don't have external ID, it shows us a warning letting us know a couple of things. That we need to create a unique identifier as an external ID in Salesforce, and that the last name property for this object is required. So that's things that this integration is letting us know. But for this use case, we are not going to be writing contacts. We just need the contacts that exist in Salesforce. So let's make it read only. Later, we are going to be writing into Salesforce, but for this specific example, we don't need it. And third, what we need to do is to select the fields we want to map. We don't need all of the data from Salesforce. Maybe our application is going to be just a view and it needs just certain data. So what fields do I need in my application? Let's say that I need the email, I need the first name, and I need the last name, I need the name, and that's it. Let's see, I don't need anything else from my contact. So I pick the fields that I want to map, and then I click on save. When I save this, what's happening? A new table is created in my schema, and Salesforce is synchronizing data. So after it finishes, you can see that now I have a contact. This contact uses the streaming API, and now I have 21 contacts in my database. I can go ahead and click on the Explorer and take a look at the different contacts I have. So these are the data that is coming from Salesforce, and you can see myself here, and the different data that I mapped. So this is the information that is coming from Salesforce. If I go to data clips, let me refresh this data clip so I have access to all of the schemas. Now you can see that I have more tables under the Salesforce schema. So let's take a look at contact. Let's create another query. I am going to be selecting first name, last name, email from Salesforce.contact. And now this information is coming from Salesforce. Let me filter this out, where last name equals Duque. And I have myself here. Cool. So let's take a look at Salesforce. So let's go to Salesforce. Let's go open the contacts. And I have myself here. Let's say that I want to change my email. So I want to change my email and I want to add like an identifier. So this is my identifier on my email. So I just want to filter out on Gmail or whatever, depending on how I want to do this. And I click on save. So I'm in Salesforce right now. What's going to happen on the database? Let's run the query. I am getting the change. So if you can see, in my PostgreSQL database, I am getting the change I did from Salesforce because it is using the streaming API. So all of the changes are going to be immediately getting here. And another change, my name has an accent. So I want to add the accent. So let's open this. What I did. Let's get back. Let's edit the record. Let's change my name, and I want to add the accent. So it is my proper name. I save this thing, and I can go ahead and run the query again. And now you can see you have the access. So I haven't written any line of code, just using low-code tools, just clicking here on my Heroku dashboard, and now I have a full integration between a Salesforce object with my PostgreSQL database. Let's explore the external objects. So the external objects is going to be the way where we can make available our data in Postgres to Salesforce. So let's click here into create credentials. And now we have some information that we are going to be using to create that connection. Here in this section is showing us the tables we have in our database. So the only table we want to make available is the sessions table. Remember that we wanted to make this table available in Salesforce so I can create an application for the RSVPs. So attendants can manifest their interest for a specific talk. So I'm going to be selecting this table, the sessions one. So right now, sessions is going to be available in Salesforce. Then we will need to create a external data source. So I'm coming back to Salesforce. Let's go to setup. And let's create a new external data source. So here on the quick find, I'm going to be typing external, click on external data sources, and let's create a new one. So new external data source. I think we are good here. New external data source. So let's add a name. This is going to be Heroku Connect. Perfect. What's going to be the type? So we can use different data sources. If you take a look at Heroku Connect, it is telling you here that we are using OData version 4, and the format is JSON. OData 4 format in JSON. So let's go back to external data source and make sure we select the OData 4. Salesforce Connect OData 4. Perfect. And the format is JSON. Beautiful. This is what we need. Second, it is asking us for a new URL. So we are going back to Heroku Connect and copy that service URL and paste it here. Cool. We have the URL. Then let's configure some things. For example, if I want the writable external objects, so I can change those objects from Salesforce. If I want to make this object available for CDC or change data captures, if I want to do different other types of things with my data. But I'm going to keep this as default. Only enable the writable external objects. Second is going to be the authentication method. How are we going to authenticate this external data source with Heroku Connect? On identity type, you are going to select named principal. And after you select named principal, let's choose password authentication. It asks us for a username and a password. So let's go to Heroku Connect and click on Show Credentials. Show Credentials is going to show us the username and password we are going to use on the external data source. So I'm going to copy and paste the user and password and paste it here on the configuration window. Then click on Save. I don't want to store this password. Thank you, LastPass. And now we have a configuration. Second, what we need to do is to validate that this connection is good and synchronize the objects. So let's click on Validate and Sync. So it says that good, the connection was successful. So there is an external data source. And now it is showing us the tables that are available. Right now, it is showing us the sessions table. So I'm going to select that table and click on Sync. So it can bring more data and create external data object. So if we scroll down, now we see that we have external object. And that external object is coming from Postgres, is coming from Heroku. This is data that don't live in Salesforce. It lives in Heroku. We just have a view of that data and we will be able to use this object within our application. Let's start modifying the external object. So let's go to the external object, click on Edit, and I want to change a couple of things. I don't like this label, so I'm going to be changing the label to follow standard. So it's going to be called session, and the plural is going to be sessions. Perfect. Don't change the rest, because the rest is going to be used for the relationship or the connection detail. If you want to have reports, you can enable reports for this object. I am not going to be creating any report, but I'm going to make this object as deployed so I can use it within my application. And let's save it. Now I have my object. It's called session, and I will be able to do things like, for example, create a tab. So let me go to the setup, find tabs. Let me create a new tab. It's going to be a custom object tab because this is a custom object. So let's select the session. Let's pick a tab style. Oh, why not this chalkboard? And enable it in different applications. So I'm going to be letting this all by default. And I created a tab. So let's go to an application, let's say service. And now I have a sessions tab. If I click on the sessions tab, let's take a look at all of the different fields. I have the data, but this is not telling me much. Let's change the fields to display. This is why I told you that you will need to create the custom layouts and beautiful pages for this. I'm using the default. So let me enable the name. Let me enable the room, the description, the date time, and removing that display URL that doesn't say anything. And now I have the information from Postgres in Heroku. In Salesforce. Yeah, from Postgres in Heroku to Salesforce. So I have access to that information here. I have a view. Then I can start like creating my application and modifying the data if I want and doing more other things. So let's start with our application. We need to create a custom object called RSVPs. This RSVP object is going to have two relationships. One relationship is going to be an internal relationship, a relationship with a contact. And the other is going to be an external relationship. It's going to be a relationship with the sessions. So let's see how can we do that. Go to the setup. Hello, everybody that is coming in the chat right now. Welcome to this session, and I hope you are learning a lot and you are having fun. Please go ahead, go in the chat, interact with me if you have any questions. Let me know where are you from, and let's have a conversation so I don't speak alone to the camera and I can speak directly to you that are connected with me. So now that I am on the setup page, let's go to the object manager and create a new custom object. So I'm going to be creating a new custom object, and this is going to be called RSVP. The plural is going to be RSVPs. Cool. And sure, let's say that I want to create an auto number here, like an ID for my reservations. And do I need reports? I don't think so. I need deployment, sure. I'm going to leave these by default. You know, I'm just creating an RSVP object. Let's save it. Awesome. Now let's add two relationships. So one relationship is going to be internal and the other is going to be external. Let's create a new relationship. Let's do a lookup, a simple one. Let's do a lookup relationship with the contact object. Contact. So contacts are going to be my attendees, the attendees of that specific talk. Contact object. Listo, contact. The contact is going to be required. And let's make these by default. Remember that I told you that I'm going to make things by default. Let's click on save and new because I need more. The other one is going to be external lookup relationship because I want to create a relationship with that external object we created, the sessions one. So let's create external relationship. The external is going to be to session. And let's say this is going to be maximum 18. This is the maximum length for a number here. Let's make it easy. Leave the others by default. Let's make it visible for everything. Default layout. Default layout. Save it. We need a last thing. When I am an attendee and I want to manifest interest in a talk, I can say, for example, if I am going or not. If I am going, if maybe, or if not. To let people know what's going to happen with the attendance of that specific session. Similar to a calendar where you manifest that you are going to attend or no to that specific session. So let's create the final field. It's going to be a pick list, a simple pick list called going, and I'm going to be entering the values, yes, maybe, and no. Use the first value as default and require this value, and let's save. Save it and save it. Now I have my custom object, okay? Let's enable this object also into my PostgreSQL database. But this time I wanna have my relationship to be bidirectional. So I will be able to read data in my PostgreSQL database and to write data. So I will be able to create a query and manifest that I'm going to be attending to a specific conference or not. So remember that for doing that, we need an external ID. So let's create an external ID. Let's create an external ID Let's make this a number. Let's click on next. This is going to be external ID, length 18, field name external ID. This is going to be required. It needs to be unique, and it needs to be an external ID. So remember, this is required, so this field is going to be available in Heroku Connect so we can create the mapping. And let's save this. Let's go next, next, save. Now we have our object. Let's go back to Heroku Connect and create the mapping. So Heroku Connect, go to mappings, create a new mapping. And remember that I told you this is going to bring a list of supported objects. One of those objects are going to be custom objects we create. So here we should have the RSVPs. Look at here, RSVP. So let's click on RSVP and enable polling just in case it's supported. Enable the write access. So now we have access to the external ID. And it's telling us that we need to map the contact. So let's map the contact as well. We will map the going because we need to see if a person is going or no. And why not map the session, because we also want to create a relationship with that specific session. And that's it. Let's save this. Now it is creating a new table, and you can see this supports both the accelerated polling, and it is bidirectional. Those two arrows means that we can support writes into my database. Let's go back to Salesforce and open the sessions. So let's refresh. Go to a session. Let's list all of the different sessions. And let's click on the future of JavaScript. I am very interested in this session. So the future of JavaScript. So go to related, and now we have the RSVP's relationship here. So let's create a new relationship. And I'm going to select, okay, Julian Duque, myself, it's going to that session. And I'm going to be creating an external ID. You will be able to modify this application later to make this better layout, automated IDs, etc. But right now we are using everything by hand. Now I created an RSVP for that session. So let's go ahead to SQL. So let's click on the data clips. Let me refresh so I have access to all of the tables here. And in the schema, you see that we have the RSVP table. So what fields do we have? So let's do a query. Select. So we have the contact, we have the session, we have going from Salesforce.RSVP. Contact, session, and going. And let's select the name as well. Because why not? Perfect. We have the data here. So we are manifesting that we are going to that conference, that the session is the one, and the contact is the one. So should we update this? Maybe what happens if I say that I'm not going, but maybe going? So let's execute that query. Let's comment this one, and let's execute that query. Update Salesforce RSVP C How can I do the update? I forgot how to do an update in SQL. I think it's update set, going C equals maybe where name equals this. I think this is the right query to do an update. Let's run it. It's going with G, not with C. Okay, cannot update in a read-only transaction. So let's use the CLI, Heroku PG PSQL, and do that query from here. Ow. I am making mistakes. Okay, awesome. I did the query from the CLI using the Heroku PG PSQL command. So I was able to update. So let me update this to see if it changed. So it changed to maybe. But let's take a look at Salesforce to see if that change was committed. So click on the RSVP and the RSVP was updated to maybe. So we are also able to update data from my PostgreSQL, and maybe we will be also able to insert data. So let's see if we can insert data. So go back to sessions. Let's view all of the sessions. And now we are going to be saying that we want to go to introducing web components session. So if I click here, I don't have any RSVP. Let's do that. So what we need to copy here is the contact, because I don't know this ID. But I know the session ID is going to be 2. So let's create an insert. Insert into Salesforce RSVP, and we are adding the session C. We are adding the contact C. We are adding the going C, and we need to add also the external ID. External ID C. And the values that I'm going to be adding are going to be the session is the 2. The contact is going to be this one that I'm pasting here. The going is going to be yes, and the external ID is going to be 2. So I'm creating a new RSVP. Okay, I missed the into. Insert into Salesforce. Okay, I inserted the row. Let me do the query again. So I have 2, session 2, and going yes. Let's see here in Salesforce if we have the new RSVP. I'm going to refresh, related, and we have the new RSVP. Julian Duque is going to session 2 and manifested that I am going. And if I change from here to going just to no, my query is also going to be updated. So what I'm doing here is just pretty much making sure that our bidirectional connection, it is working between Heroku Postgres and Salesforce. And if you see here, no is the option. So that was pretty much it. This is what I had prepared for today. Let me know if you have any questions in the chat. Thank you very much for saying hello, for connecting with me this Thursday in this new episode of the Introductions to Node.js for Salesforce Developers. Wait for the next episode, we are going to be doing a very similar integration, but using JSForce. We are going to be using JSForce, which is the SDK for the Salesforce API. And this is on Node.js. We are going to be using JavaScript. We are going to be focusing more on the Node.js side of things. And today we saw how can we easily do this integration using Heroku Connect, using low-code tools, just by clicking here and there. So thank you very much for all of you that was online with me, that interacted in the chat. Remember, please subscribe to the Salesforce Developers channel, youtube.com/c/Salesforce Developers. Click on subscribe, click on the little bell so you get notified on any content that we are going to create. We are very active lately, so you can take a look at everything that we are creating. And don't forget, go to the playlist tab, and here in the playlist tab, you can see that we have the Node.js for Salesforce Developer series, the 3 previous episodes. This episode is going to be added to this playlist. We also have the same series in Spanish. There is a new playlist that was updated today around just debugging with Lightning Web Components. And there is way more content that you can take a look here. Recommended, the Beginner's Mind series and the Modern App Development on Salesforce series. Please go ahead, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and keep in contact with us. Follow us on Twitter, Salesforce Devs. If you have any questions, please let us know. We are always looking at the channels. We are always looking at all the things that you want to ask us. And stay tuned for the next episode of this series. Thank you very much for joining me, and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.